Chairman Smith, it is 8 o'clock. We are missing one commissioner, but you do have a quorum, should you want to get started.
Okay, yeah, we can go ahead and get started. You ready? You ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good morning to everyone. Always awesome pleasure to see everyone for our monthly experience here to handle the EDA's business. And as usual, I'll read the governor's declaration. In accordance with Governor Ralph Northam's declaration of a state of emergency due to novel coronavirus, Executive Order 51 on March 15, 2020, and the local declaration of emergency ratified by the Portsmouth City Council, and due to the coronavirus pandemic, which is continuing in the Commonwealth of Virginia, this meeting of the Portsmouth Economic Development Authority is being held by video conference on the 20th day of April, 2021, without a quorum present in the 6th floor conference room in City Hall in order to reduce the likely spread of the coronavirus. Each EDA member is participating from their home. This meeting is being held in accordance with Portsmouth City Ordinance 2020-102. Notice of public access and participation to this electronic meeting was posted on the EDA and city's website, and comments to the boards about this meeting were received by the EDA staff via the porteco@portsmouthva.gov email. Again, too, I would also like to welcome and say good morning to staff that may be with us, and also to the public. There may be a few souls that are up this time of morning, watching this deliberation. So we want to welcome you also. And as is the normal case, we will turn the coordination and to the our secretary to carry us through the agenda as was printed. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
All right, thank you, Chair. Let me again say good morning to everyone. Let me also say a good welcome to our new city manager, Ms. Angel Jones, who may be joining us later this morning. We'll start off with a roll call vote. I'm sorry. Mr. Barber?
I'm here.
Ms. Drury?
Present.
Mr. Mitchell?
Present.
Brown?
Present.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Saunders Smith?
Present.
Ms. Smith?
She's muted. I see her.
I see her. I think you're muted, Ms. Smith.
I'm here. Sorry, thank you.
All right. That's all right. And Chairman Smith?
Here.
Thank you, sir. We have a quorum. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from your March 16th meeting. I need a motion and a second, and then a discussion of the motion if necessary.
So moved.
Mr. Barber?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Saunders Smith. Any discussion of the motion? All right, hearing none. Mr. Barber?
Aye.
Ms. Drury?
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Ms. Saunders Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Chairman Smith?
Yes.
All right, motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the discussion of the financials. And we do have Ms. Patty Phillips on the line. Ms.
Good
Phillips?
morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to just do a very high-level review, and of course, if there's any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. I'm going to start with the statement of net position, which is also the balance sheet, and I'm going to hit Cash is $1,474,534, and this is as of the end of February. We have some lease income receivable that has not been received. The land that the hotel and air rights sit on is $1,205,661. Property held for resale, and this includes properties transferred from the Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing, are valued at cost, I shouldn't say, of $19,627,823. We have some grants payable of $160,697. Those are grants that this body has approved through February, but not yet paid out. You have your revenue note of $5,217,000, and the loan associated with the properties acquired last September of $1,736,653, and the amount due to the city a little over $800,000. So the net position is $14.5 million. Going to the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position, also known as the income statement. We have some, this is on the accrual basis now, not cash basis. $142,650. You see all the various costs, 179. So operating loss of $36,204. We have some land development costs. We have the contribution of land from the Portsmouth Housing Redevelopment of over $3 million, and then the loss sustained on the sales that closed in February. I think that was, get my worksheet here. That was Harbor Center and 5th Street. That's $1,367,150 loss. And your change in net position of $889,043. Because of that big value of your land contributed from the Portsmouth Housing Redevelopment, your net position increased by $889,043. There's also a worksheet on the budget. I'm not going to go over that in detail unless you'd like me to. But the budgetary basis is not necessarily an accounting basis. So you will see some differences there, if that helps explain that. Any questions? I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Were there any variances that were significant to you? I'm looking at the.
I think that the variance that's significant would be the, of course, you got the large contribution from the Portsmouth Redevelopment Housing. I see it printed redevelopment housing and housing redevelopment, so I'm not sure which is the correct one at this instant. But that was not budgeted. And of course, the loss on the disposal of your land held for resale was probably not budgeted. But I don't think I see anything significant yet. There will be more closings coming up through the rest of this fiscal year. And as we get closer, I think you'll be able to see more. I'm also looking into doing a different kind of presentation that I think will be more helpful to you to break out the land sales a little more clearly so that you have a better sense of what the bottom line was. So look for that in next month.
Okay. I just have one more question, and I don't know if this is something you can answer, but I thought a few weeks ago we went, had a bond meeting. Did our bond rating change at all? Do you know?
Not that I'm aware of. No, we are looking at doing a bond sale, but that bond sale has been postponed till next month, or in May. With everything going on, we decided to postpone it, but we are preparing what they call the POS, preliminary official statement, and that's why it's important to get information from the economic development folks, because that's something the agencies will be very interested in.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Can I ask a question on the due to the city, the 819? So is that all the Renaissance that they owe us?
No, that is part of the Renaissance. It's also the, one of the properties, we have my little worksheet out. The 602 Fifth Street was is originally purchased with CDBG money. So those proceeds have to go back to the city. Okay, and then there was also on the Harbor Center, some of the money had to go back to the city. So that's why that number is as high as it is.
Okay. Have we received a payment from the Renaissance yet?
I don't think so. I don't think so. And that's something else I'm going to clarify for you too. It does not look like it. Like I said, we accrue it because it's owed to you, but from the Renaissance and also payable to the city. But from a cash basis, I don't believe it's come in.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
If you can talk to them, that would be nice.
I mean, my concern with that is I don't know what their occupancy is, but if their occupancy is reasonable, they ought to be making some payments. And
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
I know in the contract that they have with the Marriott, they are required to redo those facilities every X amount of years. So that's a commitment that they certainly honor. And I would like to see them honor the same commitment to the city, at least make some attempt to make a payment.
Yeah. Let me follow up on that, and I'll talk to Robert and Brian a little bit more too about this and see if we can make some movement.
Any other questions, comments? So we will need a motion and a second for approval, and then a discussion of the motion if necessary.
I move for approval.
I
Thank you,
second.
Mr. Smith. Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. Mr. Barber,
Aye.
Ms. Drury,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Barbara Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Smith.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Now on to old business. Well, actually, before we do that, let me welcome Councilman Paul Battle. He is on the line as well. Thank you for joining us this morning, sir, and good morning. From an old business standpoint, wanted to discuss quickly the proposed board retreat. As you recall, we discussed having a joint retreat with between the EDA and the PPIC, kind of a state of the market retreat. And then there were some changes to the individuals on the PPIC. We now have a new PPIC board. So because of that, we'd like to postpone the retreat to get them up to speed, get them a chair, vice chair, and secretary and so forth, get them up to speed and look to have this joint retreat later in the summer. Again, just so we can have it one time and both boards can hear the same things. Any questions or comments?
The only question I have, Robert, since there's a lot of new board members, and originally I thought we were going to talk a little bit about strategic planning and some of the initiatives. Is this meeting going to be reverting back to responsibilities of a board member?
No, I think it's still going to be the same kind of state of the market, so that we can, again, kind of set that baseline so everybody understands where we are as a city and how these boards can work together to, you know, further the agenda of the city as well as economic development. We have, with the new boards and the new members, we've had an initial orientation, I'll say it that way, and, you know, talking about the discussions and the roles of the board members. But I think this is going to be a little different than your typical retreat from a standpoint of who can do what and why and what you do. It's going to be, again, setting that baseline. So when we start talking about strategic plans and strategic acquisitions, things of that nature, you have a baseline of understanding.
Good.
Any other comments or questions? All right, let me also say good morning. I believe Vice Mayor Barnes has joined us as well. Let me say good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining. All right, Chair, on to the next item. This would be new business. Under new business, our first update is an update on our local incentive program, and that will be done by Mr. Brian Donahue.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Just waiting for the slide to advance. There we go. Wanted to provide you an update on the overall state of the local incentive program. On this slide, you'll see two different reports. The first is the historical funding that the program has provided through FY20. And then the second report is the year-to-date funding for the current fiscal year 21. You'll note that we have nearly expended all of the monies allocated by the EDA. There's been significant demand for the program. Over the last few months, we've got a number of applications that have come in and are under review, two of which will be presented to you here in just a few minutes for your consideration, but we fully expect to expend all of the allocated funds for this fiscal year. If we could advance to the next slide. Thank you. This is the listing of all of the approved applications that have been received for the fiscal year. You'll see again, we're just over $248,000 has been approved so far this fiscal year. We are working with those applicants to close out the approved applications. We've got a number here that have recently been completed that we've assisted, and examples of those are the Boys and Girls Club and Bailey's Bayou, which have both opened within the last few weeks here in Portsmouth. So some pretty significant investments there that they've made that we've been able to support with your allocation of funding to the program. I will note we have added a column that was requested to track information on the types of businesses that we've been assisting, to include women, minority, and veteran-owned businesses. So that column has been added to your report, and I think we've got some very good results there with in excess of 50% women, minority participation in the program. So just wanted to note that. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have, and then I'll turn it over to Ms. Jenny Osborne for her presentation of the two applications that we have for you this morning.
I'll just say I'm delighted with the types of businesses. I think it's a really good indicator of the work that we've been trying to do to make sure that minorities in the city have an opportunity to get some additional funding. So I think we've done a great job. I agree.
I did want to make a comment. I drove by the Boys and Girls Club the other day, and it looks fabulous. And to be honest, it was one of the first times I've actually noticed the building, because before it was so derelict that you didn't even want to look over there, and it looks really stunning. And I know we talked about that parking lot, and that was one of the things, but the entire building, it really does pop on that street, and it adds something to it.
Yeah.
Or any questions or comments? And Ms. Drury, to add to your comments, we did have the ribbon cutting, I believe it was Friday, for the Boys and Girls Club that was attended by our very own Vice Mayor Barnes, and I'll turn it over to him in just a second for any comments. But I think it's a stunning facility. It's their new center of excellence, if you will, for the Boys and Girls Club. It's the first one in Hampton Roads, so we are the flagship at this point. And you should definitely go by, if for no other reason, to see the part that you all played in the revitalization of the former Girls Inc. building and pushing that forward. But it is a phenomenal facility. It made me go back to my childhood. I was a boys and girls club or a boys club member in Norfolk, old WW Houston, which has been torn down here recently. But it's a great facility. Children were in there already signed up, ready to go. They have a teen center. So hats off to you all and the contribution you made into all the individuals that made that possible. Vice Mayor, did you have any comments you wanted to make?
I don't have many, but I will say that I did get a chance to tour it. It was a very nice place. I got to play basketball against Mr. Moore. I beat him by 20 points. But no, I'm joking. But like I said, it was a very good facility. They had a lot of things that most facilities wouldn't have, especially the game room with the new devices that the children are into today. Like I said, it has a nice size gym. They have a swimming pool. And we also was able to recognize one of our students in Portsmouth Public Schools who won Child of the Year or Youth of the Year. I'm sorry, Miss Bamberg, Sanaa Bamberg. So it was a great event. I was glad that I was able to join. Councilman Woodard as well was there, and our Mayor Shannon Glover was there as well. So we're doing good things, and I'm glad to know that you guys played a big role into making sure that happened and continue to do things like that for our city.
Can I interject? And it would have been even better if some of our EDA board members would have known about it, and as we've asked in the past to flag those events in case some of us want to attend.
Yes, sir. They had we understand, and we thought about that as well. They had a invite list, again, due to coronavirus and so on and so forth. But yes, sir, we will make sure that we, again, going forward, make sure we push to have representation from the board.
Thank you.
All right. If there's no other discussion on that, next item on the agenda, we have two items. They're both local incentive program applications. They're for the same facility, 830 Florida Avenue. One is a facade improvement grant. The other is an interior build out grant. If it pleases the board, what we'd like to do is have Ms. Jenny Osborne present both of those to you jointly, and then have a discussion or have a vote. Mr. Miller, just to be clear, do we need to vote independently of each other, the two applications? Or can we do one vote?
Good morning. You can do a single vote, but as long as you think everything's going to pass or have the same result, that's the only risk.
Okay.
So it really is to the board's discretion on that.
Yes, and we can initiate that by the person that makes the motion, if you are so inclined to approve both together or do it separately. So whoever makes that motion would indicate how you want to proceed.
Thank you, Chair.
Afterwards, after the report.
Yes. So thank you, Chair. And what we'll do is we'll turn it over now to Ms. Jenny Osborne.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners, and City Council liaisons. This morning, I would like to begin with a facade improvement grant request. BRP Investments 2 LLC, doing business as Blue Ridge Product Solutions, is requesting a facade improvement grant in the amount of $25,000 to support exterior improvements for a new business located at 830 Florida Avenue in the Port Norfolk community. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good, thanks. Blue Ridge Product Solutions, an e-commerce distributor, has recently relocated their operations from Richmond and California to Portsmouth and has purchased the Florida Avenue property for a warehousing and distribution center. Total interior and exterior improvements being made to this facility will exceed $800,000 and create 10 to 20 new jobs. This phase of the exterior improvements totals $135,000 and includes replacement of exterior loading dock doors, installation of emergency exit stairs, platforms, and railings to bring the building to code. You can see the photos on your screen of the condition of those items currently. Our office has worked with this organization for the past year to assist in locating this facility so the organization could relocate their operations to Portsmouth. It was during this time that they became aware of their eligibility for this program. The property owner has already replaced the entire roof of one building and repaired the roofs of other buildings. He has erected an 8-foot privacy sound barrier fence, added automatic sump pumps for drainage, and has completed work to the loading docks to make them safer and easier to identify by the truck drivers. The property is located within the citywide boundaries of the LIP program and is also located within the Virginia Enterprise Zone. If awarded, the grant money will represent 18% of the total budget for exterior improvements within this phase. Are there any questions?
Do you want questions now, or do you want to wait till the end, Robert?
If we could let I think it'd be easier if Ms. Osborne does the interior build out as well, and then just answer all the questions at the end.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So again, same organization. This phase of the interior improvements totals slightly over $300,000 and includes a complete update of overhead electrical service to accommodate new LED lighting throughout, as well as newly lighted emergency exit signs and fire-safe emergency exit doors. The property is located again within the citywide boundaries of the program and is located within the Virginia Enterprise Zone. If awarded, the grant money will represent 8% of the budget for the interior improvements within this phase.
Thank you, Ms. Osborne. Now we can open up for questions, Ms. Drury or Mr. Barber. I think you all had questions.
I did. I've actually driven past this building for years with my kids, so I know it well. I have a few questions. First off, it's the entire block, correct? Because it looks like there's like 2 buildings, one that's over on the other side of the street, so it's the entire block. Is that correct?
It is a multiple address location, yes.
Okay. Okay. And then, so when they're like the doors and windows, so they're going to do them all. Is that correct? Because there's so many of them boarded up and the old ones. So it's going to be every single door and window that's being replaced?
Yes, that is correct. They're only requesting the funds for this phase because they wanted to begin some of the improvements on a timely basis. So they're only requesting funding for this particular phase, but yes, the repairs will include all of the buildings.
Okay. And that fence does look great. You can tell, I mean, they've already done improvements to the building, so it's already looking so much better than it did. And it's a beautiful building. The brickwork, I mean, it really is a nice building. That was it. Thank you.
Okay. My question was just about, do you expect them to participate in the building renovation grant from the Enterprise Zone program?
Yes, I do anticipate that they will apply for those funds as well, but they will not be eligible until they receive their permanent certificate of occupancy.
Any other questions?
I do have one, and I meant to look this up last night, so I apologize. Exactly what is it that they do?
They're an e-commerce facility and distribution center. So it would be similar to something like an Amazon where they order, fulfillment, distribution, that type of thing.
Well, that makes sense. It's a huge loading dock back there behind it.
Councilman Battle, did I see your hand up by chance, or was I mistaken? I think you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So they're gonna have from 10 to 20 employees.
That's correct. They intend to, as the renovations are complete, they
And-
intend to work with Tidewater staffing.
And they're moving a California office and another office. Yeah,
Correct.
Portsmouth. Then they're gonna send employees from both places. So it, with the logic would say that there wouldn't be hiring many people from our city, and that when you say 10 to 20 employees, that's a strange stretch. These are just some things that I noticed, but we'll move on. Thank you.
So Councilman, if I could, to address your comment or question, what they have is they have moved some employees from Richmond to this area, and their company was kind of split up. We've been working with them for about a year now, since right before the COVID-19 kind of shutdown, if you will. But their warehousing was in California. So that's the portion, that's the warehouse portion is coming over. Their offices were in Richmond. Some of their staff, not all of their staff, moved to Portsmouth. But these 10 to 20 will be additional based off them ramping up from a standpoint of distribution. What I will tell you is that they're already in the building now, operating under a temporary CO, but they're already at a point of bursting at the seams, if you will, and are in need of another space. So we're looking at that growth, but we certainly understand your comment and your question. But those will be 10 to 20 additional jobs, depending on how the season goes.
Robert, in your working with them, did you do a projection of increased revenues as a result of their location?
So simply from a standpoint of a building that has been, I'll say, for lack of a better word, neglected for several years, and the reinvestment that they'll be making, they acquired this building for just over $1 million. They're putting in approximately just over $800,000 into the renovations. So no direct ROI calculation was done, but you can imagine putting in almost $2 million into a building that's several years old, and updating that will certainly bring some welcome improvement to the tax revenue.
Robert,
Mr.
are
Brown.
we able to project what that tax revenue would be to the city? Roughly?
You could do, I mean, if you want to do, simple numbers based off the investment, if you wanted to, you could say, it's $1.8 million in investment. And if you want to divide that by 100 and multiply it by 130, we could get you a number. But let me, instead of giving you a quick number, allow us to go back, see if we can get that ROI for you and report back, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think that's a good positive story in addition to the 10 to 20 jobs as well. So.
Mr. Brown.
Oh, sorry.
Nope, go ahead.
I was just going to note, for those who aren't really familiar with this is across the street from the park there, in that area that they're redoing. So it really, I mean, it has been an eyesore. As I said, I drive past it all the time. And being across from that park where so many people will be, it really will add to that area.
Yeah, Mr. Moore, I'm with you. I know the building as well, Mrs. Drury. It's been so dilapidated, it makes it a good backdrop for music videos, as a matter of fact. But I'm glad somebody is interested enough in it to renovate it and add the facade to it. I think the two grant requests being two separate things, we should vote on them separately because one does benefit the public more as being an exterior facade. We drive past it and that's something we visualize, and the other being a benefit more to the company as the interior build out. So I think we should weigh them separately for data purposes, for accounting purposes and such, and just vote on them separately.
Is that a almost motion, sir?
Yes, sir.
Could you phrase that for me?
Yes, I'd like to make the motion that we vote on them separately.
Okay, and I just need a motion to approve the either the facade or the interior build out, if I could, and then a second.
I'll move the approval of the facade improvement grant.
Thank you, Mr. Barber.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Any discussion? I saw Councilman Battle had his hand up.
This is an example of the advantage we have with our strategic location and the benefits of us being one of the largest handler of goods on this planet. And this is what I'm trying to, a good job, Mr. Moore, but this is what I've been trying to get folk to see and to understand, that we are a desirable city and that we don't have to go out every time we're dealing with a company and give the ship away. This is not the only company that it's gonna be advantageous for them to come here because we have so many assets of advantage to them. And that's the only reason why folk come to your city anyway, is there are financial advantages. They can make money. And again, because of the things that we have, such as the shipyard, such as the port at Port Norfolk, we're a desirable city and we need to take advantage of that and not be outplayed every time we enter a contractual agreement. Thank you, guys.
Any further discussion of the motion? All right, we have a motion again to approve the facade improvement grant. Hearing no more discussion, Mr. Barber,
Aye.
Ms. Drury,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
thank you, and Chairman Smith.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Motion carries. We would now need a motion regarding the interior build out grant, and again, a second, and then discussion.
I move for approval of the interior build out grant at 830 Florida Avenue.
Thank you, Ms. Saunders Smith. Thank you, Mr. Barber. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Barber,
Aye.
Ms. Drury,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith,
Yes.
Mrs. Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Smith.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda for new business is it is that time of year where we will need to discuss and approve a budget for FY22. Staff did meet extensively with the ad hoc committee made up of Ms. Drury and Mr. Barber, and we have sent to you a copy of the proposed budget. I will now turn it over to Ms. Drury and Mr. Barber to make their presentation, and then we will have a discussion of the budget, proposed budget. Ms. Drury?
Thank you. And thank you to the ad hoc committee and Mr. Barber. This one was a little different this year. So last year was my first one, and it was really a little bit easier because the numbers weren't going to be as changed as much. This year, of course, we know that we have the sale of the Victory land. So that really does change it and makes us really think strategic in our planning and looking down the line. So I'm going to go through and explain it, and Mr. Barber is going to jump in and with Mr. Moore also when needed. The sale of the land under operating revenues, you can see the proposed is 15 million, which of course is a huge jump year over year, and that is from the sale of Victory Village, which we do see closing in the next 6 months. The IRB, the service bonds will pretty much stay the same. The rental investment property, that is at 60,000. Actually, it would have been a little more, but the 301 Columbia property, the police are moving out of that. So it won't be what it would be, but this is the 117 and the 1121 High Street properties where we're seeing the investment property money come from. And then the lease income from the Renaissance, that is of course the same every single year, 125,000. So that gives you a total of 15,186,100, which again is considerably different from year over year. Any questions or comments? Mr. Barber, did you want to say anything?
No, I think you keep on going. I'm good.
Okay. Cost of land sold, that 75,000, those are just any charges affiliated with that. Land acquisition, this is really where the big one is. We've put aside $1 million for that. That again is for strategic acquisitions. As we all know, we do not have as much land sitting back there that we own that we can develop and sell. So this 1 million is to put it so that we will have the money in our coffers, really building a war chest, because in order to be successful, we do need to be able to invest in the lands and be very strategic about that. Contractual auditing fees year over year, that pretty much stays the same, 10,000. Business development, 55,000, of course, in fiscal year 20. That went down because of COVID, but we do estimate it to be back on track for the next year for as much as possible. Economic development grants. We have put in there 500,000. That is because even though, yes, we are a very desirable city because of the port, we also are competing against the other cities in Hampton Roads. We're competing against cities in other states. And these cities are offering economic development grants to them as incentives. That's coming up possibly with the old Massimo property, as we've discussed. And we need to level out the playing field and be prepared so that we don't lose out on something that comes up that we really want. So we put in 500,000 for that.
Yeah, can I jump in here a little bit? Oftentimes in competing for statewide projects, there's the Commonwealth Opportunity Fund and other potential grants to support the location of those things. And those state grants need matching funds. And this gives us the opportunity to provide, the funding necessary to match the grants that may be coming from the state.
Perfect, thank you.
Kathy, can I also just comment, back up to the land acquisition? Well, I guess the money for land acquisition, and this would include that too, with the possible income that we may be receiving, from the Victory project, as you mentioned. Do we think that's enough? I mean, $1 million is very minuscule amount when you look at the cost of, there are a few large parcels left. I know one of them, the biggest one, is probably tied up in litigation, and we definitely couldn't budget trying to acquisition that because of the debt that's still owed on it, and that has to be satisfied. But so y'all are satisfied that $1 million and that 500,000 for the grants is enough?
Mr. Chairman, my personal feeling is that I would prefer that it be a higher number, but I don't know what a higher number should be, because we need to consider, what the options are for land acquisition next year. But we put that in there sort of as a placeholder so that we would, anticipate that we would make some strategic acquisitions next year. But at least I'm very open to increasing that if it's the desire of the board.
Mr. Brown.
Had that item previously, I'm looking at the blanks across had that item previously been unbudgeted in the previous years?
Yes, sir, that is correct. You all, this board did not.
This case is more, it's just adding a surplus to the coffers, as Ms. Drury said. And it could also be considered as matching, as an amount to match any state funding that may come in.
Yes, sir.
Well,
the $1 million will be for land acquisition.
You can go.
Okay.
And then the
great.
500,000 is the economic development grants, or the potential matching. So I think Mr. Barber, not to put words in Mr. Barber's mouth, but I think Mr. Barber's thought process and the chair's thought process is that $1 million could be a higher amount strategically for acquisition of property.
Yes,
and staff does not disagree. Again, the more money you give to spend, we will spend it. But I think $1 million at the time was a good placeholder from a standpoint
especially when there was no previous budget there for it.
Correct. Yes, sir.
I have a question too. Have we been working with redevelopment and housing to determine if there's lands out there that we could possibly look at acquiring and could get a dollar amount if that is the case? I know that we have worked with them in the past in acquiring property.
I can answer that, Chair. So we've looked, I believe you're asking about property that the Housing Authority currently owns. We have been working the last almost 3 years with the Housing Authority on their portfolio and what we should have. I believe we have acquired all of the property that we would find desirable and developable at this point. They do have some properties left over, however, that most of them are residential, not commercial or industrial or things of that nature. So I believe we've scrubbed that list pretty good. And they do have some properties that they would like to hold on to, certainly that we may want, but again, that we're still in discussions on how that will work. And if nothing else, we've done a great job working with them to market some of those key sites for them, should they decide to hold on to them. But I think at this point, you all have acquired. You didn't pay for them; they were transferred to the EDA. And as Ms. Phillips talked about earlier, those are the items that kind of made your budget increase somewhat this current year because of the acquisition of those properties. I believe this $1 million would be more of a strategic going out, targeting specific areas, and seeing what pieces of property out there specifically we think would be beneficial as a catalyst for economic development.
Yeah, my point is, especially with the land acquisition piece, if we sincerely are interested in not only acquiring the property, but also enticements, if it will fit that category, in order to help out a business that may be wanting to purchase that property and have some available money to help out in that respect too. And maybe that's Virginia Beach kind of talk, but that's something that we shouldn't limit ourselves to I'm thinking it at least should be triple what we have here, but that's just my thoughts.
Well, I think most of us actually agree with you. And we really did struggle with coming up with a number. So, of course, we're all open to putting that more. And, you know, I liked your comment about, you know, that's Virginia Beach talk. We talk about, you know, our potential and how great we are. And we know what we're competing against in the other cities with what they have for the monies to play in the game. And if we want to be a player, then we have to be able to come up to the table with the same amounts. So, so I'll move on, but I think this is going to come up even more down the line and a few other things. The admin legal, again, 10,000, contractual commission, 7,500, and all of these have pretty much stayed the same. And based on Robert, they won't change. Contractual survey and appraisal, 5,000. Insurance other, 20,000. Contractual other, 175,000. This is really for any studies, consultants. You know, we've been talking about, Teresa and I've been talking about consultants, but this is to bring in even a consultant to see what lands are out there, but it's really to use in what way we see best in order to grow our minority-owned businesses, in order to grow our what we have out there to find it to buy. So that is something we have the money to do with. Robert, did you want to jump in on that any?
Yeah, the contractual other 175,000. That's really for, as Ms. Drury stated. You know, you all have discussed again. If you wanted to have pay a consultant to come in and do a study with regards to minority businesses, if you wanted to have some renderings or some drawings done to see how a property could be developed, and things of that nature. So especially after having a property like Victory Village or the Victory Boulevard property and kind of seeing you know, what could go on there, to be able to study that or have the opportunity to get some renderings maybe to really understand what you have. That's what that funding is for. We had 175 for last year, and I think with, again, you all talking anywhere from $1 million to $3 million for acquisition of property, you're going to have some times where a property may be strategic, but you don't know exactly what you want to do with it, how you want to do what you want to do with it. And, you know, having someone come in and kind of put a conceptual together, that monies would come out of here.
Contractual other underneath. Oh, sorry. Go on, Teresa.
Yeah, I have a question. A little later on in the agenda, we're going to talk about the recommendation of the Business Development Committee. And I was wondering if we could look at possibly increasing that amount, maybe by $100,000, to look at what the issues we were talking about with hiring an equity manager, to actually give us pure data of actually what we're doing as it relates to minority businesses. So I was wondering if we could consider that at this junction. We're not voting on the budget today, are we?
Yeah.
No, you don't have to. I would say you make the changes as you see fit, and then we will bring it back to you in May. But we need in May.
Yeah. It's gonna be a couple hours.
Share, you're unmuted.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm putting that you're suggesting 275,000.
Yeah, they went through all of that too, and she's, you
know.
Contractual other workforce development is 135,000. 40,000 of that is the lease that we have signed for the offices across where we've set up the workforce development, and 95,000 is for programming.
I had a question with that regards. I see that was previously unbudgeted in previous years. this projection mean there's actually activities gonna take place this in its upcoming year that this is projected for?
Yes, sir. What we have is the lease has been signed. We leased the entire second floor now of the building at 200 High Street. We have already put in place, and just so you all know, this was going to be discussed later as far as items submitted by commissioners, but the Portsmouth at Work Center, the open house is May the 14th, so you will see your dollars at work. But as Ms. Drury stated, the 40,000 is for the lease. The 95,000 roughly is for programming, so that we can keep the programming free and trainings free for our citizens. The lower the cost, the more likely individuals will take part in it. And again, it's just a benefit to the citizens to be trained and create that workforce pipeline. But that is in process as we speak.
Good. Thank you.
Indirect cost allocation, pretty much same year over year at 8,500. Training and travel, obviously there wasn't much of that in the previous fiscal year, but it's 7,500. For general expenses, a total of a little over 2 million, but it's looking like that could go much higher, which is actually a good thing for all of us. Going down to the development properties held for resale, a lot of this is different year over year because of Victory. We won't have the legal reimbursement and the contractual because of Victory, the 100,135. The grounds maintenance will actually go up a little bit as we're acquiring new land in this strategically. Maintenance also up 10,000. Debt service, that is a difference of 167 last fiscal year to 84,000, only because, as you'll see later, when we pay off the debt, we're only having to pay on the debt service for approximately the first 6 months of the year. But once that debt is paid off, then we won't have that. And then utilities seem to be going up every year, and so it's 44,000. Any questions on that? So we're looking at total operating expenditures, 2.319 million. Of course, as we've just discussed, we're looking at raising that possibly 2.5 to 2.6 million more. Operating income, okay, the non-operating revenues, the local incentive program, we have at 300,000, the same as last year. We can see that we have spent all of that this year. Is there any comments or questions on that?
Just a comment, in discussion with the staff, we sort of indicated that there may be some of the stimulus money coming to the city that will be allocated for grants, second round of grants, possibly to be administered by the city. And we had talked previously about the, I guess, updating the grant program there. And as a result of both of those factors, that we're suggesting possibly suspending the current program for about 6 months, redoing the program design for that, updating it, and then launching basically a new program the first of the year. And then in the interim, the staff would be administering the stimulus money as grants to business. Robert, have I characterized that correctly?
Yes, sir. I'm gonna characterize it a little bit more. So what we have is the thought process is in speaking with the finance, the CFO, and then at the same time understanding what is going on in the political realm with regards to CARES Act funding. It appears that there will be additional CARES Act funding coming to the localities, and potentially, should it be council's desire, an appropriation made to the EDA for additional fundings. And this could be a sizable amount depending on what council decides to do. Between that and the LIP program, there's some definite opportunities to provide assistance to businesses. We are currently, when I say we, staff as well as the finance staff and legal are going through what potentially that CARES Act funding could be used for. That way we know exactly if we tailor a program, how we would tailor it and should tailor it. With that being said, between that and at the same time, you notice from this budget, you all are spending a rather large amount of money annually on debt services and things of that nature. What we need to do is also sell some properties. And we have sold a number of properties, but a number of those properties have been CDBG or Community Development Block Grant funding properties. So while you sell the property, that money goes back into the CDBG program. We need to sell some property and get some money in the bank before you start really looking at sending out any more grants from a LIP program standpoint. So the thought process is we will have a number of grant or applications, not applications, but I'm sorry, but properties that will close between now and December. So the thought process is let's sell those properties, more specifically the Victory Boulevard property, sell that property, get that money in the bank, and then effectively January 1, move forward with what could be a revamped local incentive program that's more targeted, more effective, and at the same time, when you piggyback or combine that with the CARES Act funding, I think that's going to have a greater reach and a greater impact. Say it that way. Any comments or questions? Okay, Ms. Drury, sorry to.
Oh, no, that was actually, I had that in my notes, so that was great. The investment income, the same, the transfer to primary government, that is the 125 is the Renaissance Portsmouth Hotel. Note payable interest, 41,000, that would be remaining before we pay it off. That's then. So here's where we get into what Robert was talking about. The payoff of Victory Village revenue note is 5.217 million. So we would be taking the 15 million and we would be paying off that note, the 5.217. And then right below that, you see the payoff of GPDC loan, the 1.742 million, which is essentially we're paying off all of our debts. We're becoming debt free. That leaves us at 7.417 on the non-operating, the expenses. So our operating revenues, 15, essentially 15 million, operating expenses, 2.31, which I think is going to change. The non-operating revenues, this is the debt, paying it off, 7.417, which leaves us right there, revenues in excess of expenditures, 5.448879 million. So that's where we are discussing, okay, let's take the land acquisition instead of having 5.4 million sitting there, moving it into land acquisitions and also into the contractual, like what Teresa was talking about, a consultant, and also the economic development grants. So again, it's really, we know we're running out of properties to sell. We have to be very strategic in finding properties that we can buy. So we need to acquire and invest in the properties to support the development in our city. And we need to build a war chest so that we're ready for these opportunities and we're able to buy this land and be competitive. Feedback, questions?
Well, I would like to commend the committee. Have done a great job, and it's really great that we are now in a position to think differently strategically on how we can benefit the city overall. And so I'm excited.
I shared that excitement as well. And I think there's also an opportunity for us to look at what other drivers EDA can do for the city in terms of redoing neighborhoods. I just feel like there are homes that we can purchase to kickstart new neighborhoods and get them redeveloped and having people move into these homes, which will bring additional tax dollars to the city. But I do have one question here, and that is, who holds the funds for these accounts? What bank? Are we working with several banks or just one bank?
So you have one bank as far as the where your money is actually kept, and that's Town Bank. The note for the GPDC properties is held with Town Bank. The note for Victory Village is with Atlantic Union Bank.
Okay, the reason I raised that question because I think we should leverage that when Teresa and Kathy give their presentation, particularly as it relates to a financial institution. If we're putting those kind of monies into a bank, we ought to have some leverage there in terms of, some things they can do for us as well. So.
And Malcolm, I was going to say one thing that we did talk about was our investment income is $7,500, and we did talk about, could we be making more on our money by looking at other banks? And I had talked about it with Teresa and also mentioned it to Robert during this conversation. I am on the board of the YWCA, and one thing we've been doing is looking at new banking and our relationships. And a big thing with us is the banks that really promote racial justice, and that's a huge thing with us, and the banks that are involved socially. So I do have a list, and Atlantic Union is one, and there's a few others. So yes, we want to use our relationships to actually work with the banks to come up with helping our minority companies get the lending that haven't been traditionally been able to.
Totally agree,
So
Kathy.
brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Any other questions, comments? Councilman Battle, Vice Mayor Barnes, any comments?
You guys are doing a wonderful job. I noticed the increase of funding from last year to this year. The city's moving and you're moving with it. Congratulations.
I just wanted to say I appreciate what Miss Jury and them are doing, especially regards to the bank. I would like to continue to be updating regarding that to see what we can do to make sure we find different banks who are invested in the social movement, but also investing in our minority business and things of that nature. So appreciate you guys for looking into that.
Thank you, sir. Chairman, I think you had your hand up. I apologize.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah. I too want to thank Kathy and Neil for a job well done. I also, wanted to make sure everyone else had a chance to speak before I make the last comment, possibly. But again, we really need to have a plan and focus on, where we want to go and how we want to do it, and to justify the need, for the monies and to utilize the monies that could be coming our way. And I think it behooves us to indicate to everyone our direction and the need to be in a position to acquire land at will when necessary, when it becomes available, because a lot of time is an element when land does come available, and when you're off meeting cycle and lands can be grabbed up in a matter of weeks or a month, especially valuable pieces of property that are privately owned and maybe someone wants to, unload it. So we can talk a little further about, specifically where those possibilities might be and how we want to go about it. But again, I'm in full agreement with the presentation here, with the indication that we need to increase in a few areas, as mentioned and discussed.
Just so that we there, and I may not have gotten all of them, but what I understood, the amendments to the budget that would be made would include an additional $2 million for land acquisition from $1 million to $3 million, an additional $100,000 to contractual services other from $175,000 to $275,000. And were there any other budget amendments that I missed?
There was the economic development grants that came up about also doubling or tripling that. So, I mean, I would think $1 million would be the minimum we'd want to go on that.
Yeah, I agree.
So that goes from 500,000 to $1 million. So those are three changes. Any additional?
Let me ask another question back on the budget as far as training and travel. Is that specifically just the EDA members, Robert, or because I know you have your own money and you have that the city allots you for travel and training, but that's and you never assume, but I'm assuming that that's just for EDA. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That is specifically for EDA members. Again, I think all of you all may have. If you haven't, we need to get you signed up. There's a training, kind of a boards and commissions training that's normally held right around Roanoke or Christiansburg. We utilize that funding to pay for that training and any type of accommodations or travel. Our staff does have their own budget line item for travel. And I believe that was a topic of conversation during the budget discussion, thanks to Vice Mayor Barnes and others on council. So.
Okay, so that amount should be increased to at least 10,000. I'm sorry, not what is it, 7,500? So that I think maybe a couple of more thousand maybe should add it. Only because oftentimes, and I'm not sure, Jeff can chime in here as to what are the restrictions and what are requirements. Say if everyone decided they wanted to go to a particular function, and can it be the same function? And I know there are limitations on traveling together, but as far as the added cost, if every member wanted to go. This is hypothetical.
Yes, theoretically, as many people as desire can go to a specific event. That would not violate state law as long as you don't have three people sit down together and talk about board business during the event. I know some years ago, the EDA board did adopt a specific travel policy, but that was some years ago. And so that's certainly something that the board could consider, is coming up with a travel policy going forward.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because I think since I've been on the board, I know Malcolm and myself, I believe it was just him and I. One other person was supposed to go, but I don't think they could make it at the last minute. But we did attend that summit where we had an opportunity to kind of network and talk to EDA organizations and types from all over the state, and it was very informative, and we learned a lot of legal issues. And so there are things like that we should be abreast of, and we should try to get to if we can, because it was very, very, very informative. And the fact alone that you can talk with other members in other parts of the states, from Northern Virginia out to the rural areas, just to determine just how they operate. And because a lot of them operate differently based on their local ordinances and codes or whatever. But it was just a very enlightening experience to get to talk to some of them, and just to talk about the things that they're doing and what they do for some places that are a whole lot smaller than us. And it was kind of unbelievable, some of the things that they were tackling that we probably have the capability, but maybe don't have that, think that we can accomplish that. So, and I bring that up just for members to think about that too. I know some of us are retired, but and some work. So that's the decisions that you would have to make. And mostly they're a day or two, maybe 3 at the longest. But I think it's very fruitful. I can just be reminded of all my times on the school board and the city council, and how valuable travel to get out of Portsmouth to see what other folks are doing. It benefits you in a wealth of different ways. So that's something and I bring it up for the members themselves to think about, and not to all load up and head out next 2, 3, 4 months, but when those opportunities become available. And we need to hear from staff too as to when they do come available, because they oftentimes get that information before we do. And as far as 3 of us, sitting down talking, we can budget for body cameras, so to make sure that doesn't happen.
How about I take it up to 12,000? And I completely agree, because I was actually one of the ones scheduled to go to the annual meeting last year in Roanoke before it got canceled. So I definitely, and I think with so many on the board who haven't been to it, I think more than not of us would like to go and learn what you learned.
Yes.
Yes, I would be very interested in going as well.
I would too.
Vice Mayor, hand up, or you're looking to go? Okay.
No, I'm asking. I want to ask a question. Well,
Yes, sir.
comment. I have a comment. I'm sorry. I'm glad Chairman Smith actually mentioned that. As a school board member, I went to a lot of different trainings and got a chance to meet a lot of members across the country, and I learned a lot, and that I was able to bring here. So it's good that he's bringing that up, because I think you guys would benefit from that. So, and I know it's good to have a council member to agree with you on this particular issue, but I think you guys can really get better in bringing things to our city and learn some of the things that they're doing in other cities, not only just the small ones, but the big ones as well. And it also, you might find some type of connects there that from a particular business that you can bring here. We'll work on bringing here. So I really appreciate you, Mr. Smith, Chairman Smith, for bringing it up. And I think all you guys should take advantage of that personally.
Thank you.
All right. Councilman Battle, I want to make sure I can't see you on my screen. Just want to make sure you didn't have your hand up, sir.
No, sir. Everything's in order.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So if there's no further discussion, then Chair, what we will do is make these additional changes, provide them to the ad hoc committee for their review, and then we will bring the budget back in May and approve the budget for FY22 at that time. And that should be hopefully in order with finance to carry on as they do the budget as well. But we'll make those what appears to be 4 changes, and we will go from there. Any further comments or discussion? All right. I think I just muted myself. We do not have a need to go into closed session. The next item on the agenda would be items submitted by commissioners. And I promised Mrs. Saunders Smith that she could go first.
All right, thank you. The Business Development Committee has submitted a report. I hope all of you have had a chance to look at it, about the report that we gave at the last meeting as to what we would like to see happen. I'm excited that a lot of the things that we discussed today are actually a part of what we were looking at. And so I'm not going to go through everything, but I'm going to go very quickly. And what we would like these commissioners to do is to support our recommendations, and that it be brought to the Economic Development Committee, or the department rather, to look at this and to come back with a report to us as to the cost and the feasibility of what our recommendations are saying. Now, our first recommendation is to hire an equity manager. That we feel is important because we need to be able to show that we're doing what we say we're doing. We want to be able to know how many minorities are hired. We want to know the opportunities out there and how much of it went to minority businesses. We want to know actually the jobs when it comes to the workforce, what jobs they received, the salaries they received. And I think that this breakdown is important to be able to show we are doing what we say we're going to do. Number two is the Community Financial Assistance Institution, or working with the local bank. We talked about this earlier. A lot of our minority businesses are going to need help. We need to get them some help by way of some grants or some loans. And of course, we need a banking institution or some other type of financial institution to be established to assist our minority businesses. Now, in reviewing this, I was amazed at how many monies were out there. And actually, just like the Goldman Sachs money of the $1 billion, they look for banks to ask for this money and other financial institutions and prove to them that we need this money. So we want to leverage, like Mr. Mitchell said, our relationships with our banks to go out and seek some of these funds for our minority businesses. Okay, thirdly, we want to look at the traditional system of how contracts are awarded, specifically in our city, and to look how we can make it more business friendly for our minority community. And then fourthly, we like the workforce development to establish a focused training specifically for helping minorities businesses to be able to compete. Even when working with businesses with just the stimulus money, it was amazing to me how much they don't have, how much knowledge they don't have, how many records they're not keeping that allows them to even qualify for funding. So we know that our workforce development needs to work with our small minority businesses. So those are the recommendations that we have. And we would also like for members of the Business Development Committee to be a part of the process in looking at these things and bringing back a report to the board. Any questions?
I just have one question on and I love the recommendations, but my question is on the first one for the equity manager. Is there such a position currently with the city, or do they not have anything that addresses that issue?
I'm not aware of anything. I know in the past, a lot of the departments contracted those services out, especially when you were dealing with federal monies to provide that reporting. But I guess well, I don't know, the city manager's probably not on this call, but I'm not aware of any.
Okay.
Mr. Mitchell, to answer your question, I don't believe that there is a equity manager, if you will. And I think they go by many names now, depending on what city you're in. I think these are all great recommendations. I will tell you that I believe the start of this entire conversation is really going to start with City Council and their updating of the disparity study. and making sure that we, really again get that baseline and understanding where those disparities are, what those disparities are, and then how we can improve them. So again, great recommendations, and I think council has already kind of begun that process. I'll leave that that comment to Vice Mayor Barnes and Councilman Battle, but I believe council is already in the process of looking to update that disparity study, and I think that'll give you the launch point for a number of these recommendations and how to move forward. I'll turn it over to Vice Mayor Barnes or Councilman Battle if they want to comment.
Well, can I say before you turn it over to them that we get a chance to, kind of address what Teresa's presented. One of the most important factors for that equity manager is with these big contracts that are coming with the casino and then with the Holiday Inn area, the waterfront area, and all the things that come. I think it's imperative that we as an authority, because we are so intimately involved, have a person on hand that reports to us in that fashion, regardless of what the city does in that fashion. I think it's important that we have access to a person with that time and capability and not put that pressure or additional work on the economic development staff. So that's just my take on it. I'd like to hear from some of the other members first before we hear from the council members.
I had a, if I may, I had an opportunity to read your report, Ms. Sanders Smith, and it was brilliant. I agree with what the data that you're trying to collect is very essential. But as I mentioned in the last meeting, I also think it's something that could be included in the next disparity report. It's not a lot of information that you want to collect, and those data points could be included in the next disparity report, and that way it could be let's say just like an additional task of those people that's collecting the data for the disparity report. But I think your report was great.
I guess my only question, only comment I would have to that is that I think we as an authority need that information, and I think that sometimes you wait for reports and you're in the after fact, after the stuff is done. We need constant, I think, feedback as to how things are going, whether or not we're meeting the challenges that we said. And that's why I believe that we need to have somebody that reports directly to the authority.
Okay, constant feedback matters, definitely. I definitely see your point now.
I was going to say exactly pretty much what Teresa said there. The disparity study is, from my understanding, which is obviously needed, but more of the entire city, an entire overview. What Teresa and I have been talking about is really has to do with economic development and is ongoing, and it touches on exactly what Teresa and Ray talked about with the casino and with what we want to do on the waterfront and tracking it all along. And I can say, as one of the original hiring managers at the Renaissance Portsmouth Hotel and going through those job fairs as we're trying to hire people and be cognizant of who we hire from Portsmouth and minorities, it's not an easy job. And that's where the whole training part is going to come in, because we have to have our employees ready for it. But then really working hand in hand with Rivers Casino on making sure that they are hiring locally, even though, we want the best candidates to work there, and they have to be qualified, but we do have to have them ready. So I think it does need to be separate. I understand exactly where you're going with the disparity study, and we need that, but this is actually taking that and going further. The disparity study is just going to say where we are now. This position would be taking us where we're going to.
So I think we've had I think hopefully all the members, you can say something even afterwards, but I think Councilman Battle was trying to get in. You muted. You muted.
Unmuted. Recently in a council meeting, our attorney made us aware of a law that was passed by the General Assembly in 218, I think it was, maybe 219, but it gave the city manager the power to intervene and to make sure that equity is in place. We haven't discussed it any further because it was the last meeting, but that would cure a lot of our ills in reference to the contracts. And of course, we have to keep the equity study up to date. I think we requested a new one, although we're not in violation of the other one going out as of yet. So that'll, cure a lot of our ills with that problem that we've been having about the contracts and the minorities getting their share and so forth and so on. I wanted to just make you guys aware of that.
Okay, I think sounds like we're ready to. Teresa, y'all done, or you need to got more?
No, we're finished. We're done. We just would like that to be considered and given to the Economic Development Department to flush out for us and to report back on to us with the Business Development Committee.
Teresa, I do have one question. Do we have anything that shows what our current state is today? So how many minority contractors do we have in the city of Portsmouth? What type of work do they do? So that becomes where we are and maybe where we want to get to. So do we have anything that reflects our current state?
Who's that question to? I think I would think that's something that's monitored. That's monitored on a state level, but maybe Robert can answer that question.
It should be a record of licensing in the city of businesses that have business licenses in the city. You should be able to pull a record of business license and see if the business is a minority owned or to see who owns the business within the city.
Well, I think that in looking at that previously, a lot of it deals with SWAM, and it doesn't break it out really, a lot for you to exactly know what you're talking about. And this is why we say we want it broken out to determine what is actually women owned, which is actually minority owned, those type of demographics. So you're right, we do need a starting point, and maybe that is something we need to do with that equity manager. You need to start with where we are to look at where we want to go.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I will say, when Teresa and I were first starting this, I spent about 5 hours one day just researching based on my knowledge of opening a hotel on the types of businesses that there are. And I spent about 5 hours researching contractors and electricians and plumbers and drywall, and to find them in Portsmouth that were based in Portsmouth even was extremely hard. I will say, and Teresa and I talked about that, it was there were not even that many based here in Portsmouth for all of that. That's one thing, and that's where we came back on looking at, doing the training for more businesses to be able to be certified and become a business.
Yeah, and what you find is a lot of them don't have all the paperwork in place to be considered a business. And that's what Kathy was talking about. We need to do some in-depth training to get, I mean, they're so busy with the day-to-day operations, they don't realize how these important things are causing them not to be able to expand, you know, to be.
Well, I've noticed a phenomenon that I have a lot of people who are business owners, friends who are business owners who are residents in Portsmouth, yet their businesses aren't registered in Portsmouth. They have painting companies, they have construction companies, they have transportation businesses, but they're outside of Portsmouth. They may reside themselves in Portsmouth, but their business is located elsewhere. But I'm sure there's a starting point. There's a place where you could collect information, even down to the swarm data that you need to receive to find out what businesses are minority owned and operated here within the city.
Right, I was really shocked in dealing with, I was contacting Depot, who handles a lot of the licenses for the state and they are so behind. It is unbelievable that it's people that they thought had licenses that haven't been maintaining their licenses. So, yeah, we need to get a handle on specifically for the city of Portsmouth. And you're right, there are a lot of people who do business here and they just don't have their paperwork in order. You know, and maybe some of it is financially. You know, that's why we need they need that assistance.
Well, then they had a COVID closing in the city, and a lot of people who were trying to apply for business licenses couldn't get their licenses because the city hall was closed. But you're right. So I would be willing to help somebody research that data to find out how many small businesses are actually licensed and registered within the city, so we can have a starting point for that.
Okay, great. Mr. Moore, what is your feelings about this?
I think it's a great discussion, and certainly staff can start to flush this out some more. Sit down with the ad hoc committee and really understand what you want, and then see what information we can come with and report back to the ad hoc, and then the ad hoc can report back to the board in May. So we look forward to working with the group and seeing what information we have and how we can move forward. I think, as Councilman Battle stated earlier, a number of things council is looking at is the role of the city manager with regards to contracts and things of that nature. So I think kind of looking at it in kind of a dumbbell approach, a barbell approach, if you will, and understanding what each side has. So we will sit down with you all. We'll get a meeting set up with the ad hoc committee and then begin those discussions and see if we can have something as early as the May meeting. Any other items to be, or any other further discussion on that first before we move forward? Any other items submitted by commissioners?
I just, you may be saying this, but it came out yesterday, I think, and I just want to make sure everybody was aware of it. Rivers Casino is doing a webinar on hiring. It's April 27th at 5:30 and April 28th at 10 a.m. So you do have to register for it. But I figured Teresa and I will definitely be on that because we're watching everything they do. But if anybody else did want to see it, it's just preliminary, talking to candidates about what they need to do in order to be hired, any training they might need, any training they're offering. So I think it'll be very informative and goes along with what we're talking about here. So that news just did come out in the last day.
Yeah, and also be mindful that the offshore wind project, they have webinars too, pretty regular, and it's interesting, to hear where they're headed and what's coming along with that. So that's something if you and normally it's posted by the city. I know interim manager Pace was putting a lot of that out on email when it came through, but also Dominion is sending it out also to everybody that I've seen. That's where I've gotten it directly from Dominion. So be mindful of that too, because that's also going to be huge, very huge. Even though we won't, be involved, but the effects of it and what's going to come with the additional, what they're planning to build over there at the old Portsmouth Marine Terminal, and what could happen in the surrounding area, because it's going to be something that's ongoing for years to come.
Speaking of that, Robert, do you have any idea where we stand with the fiber rollout, which could be an economic engine for us as well? Is there any updates on that?
I will tell you that, and I believe Vice Mayor Barnes, I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, and Jeff Miller and Kelsey Slorenga are on here as well. Is it the Broadband Authority has been put together? I think Vice Mayor Barnes and Mayor Glover are the liaisons to that group, or a part of that group. So that authority has been put together. So I think there's been some movement with regards to really getting that, I'm going to use the term turned on, if you will, and rolling out. So we're excited about it, because we do have plans for a mini or a micro data center in Portsmouth, right near downtown. So we're excited about that. So I'll reach out to Mr. Daniel Jones, our CIO, and see if I can get a more definitive answer on, when that's going to happen. But I know that they do have the Broadband Authority has been kind of put in place and is beginning to meet to really discuss those things.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? I have a couple of things, Chair, but I want to let everybody else go before I say anything. Okay, I'm gonna jump in. Ms. Drury did steal my thunder with regards to the, but that's all right. That's just a complete joke. With regards to the information session with Rivers Casino, what we're really excited about with regards to that, in addition to, certainly the 1,300 jobs, is that a significant amount of that training is going to happen right here through our Portsmouth Ad Work Center. So we're very excited about that, and being able to partner with Rivers to make sure you have a number of those, that soft skills training, some of the hospitality, some other things that are going to be happening right across the hall. So we're really excited about that. And kind of in conjunction with that, again, our open house for the Portsmouth At Work Center is May 14th. You'll get some more information on that, but kind of save the date, because we'd love for you all to come and take a tour of the facility. Vice Mayor Barnes and Councilman Battle have seen. It's not completed. We still got some equipment to get in there, but very excited about what this will do for our citizens. They have seen it. Also, the chair and the vice chair have taken the tour. I don't want to speak for them, but I will say they seemed delighted when they saw that, what we had done over in that space. So that, and partnering with Rivers and our other community partners, including the Hampton Roads Workforce Council, TCC, that's going to be a phenomenal center. And again, that open house is going to be May 14th. May 2nd through the 8th is Small Business Week. So it's our opportunity to really, and this is a national week, but it's a celebration of our small businesses. We all know that small businesses are the backbone of the American economy, but I can tell you, that's no more prevalent or more actual than in the city of Portsmouth. You have about 86% of our businesses have 20 employees or less. So when you talk about small businesses, they are really the push. That mom and pop is really the push for what we have here in the city. And we're going to be excited to celebrate those folks. We celebrate them all the time, but specifically May 2nd through the 8th. And then finally, well, not finally, I've got one other thing, but the following week, May 9th through the 15th, is Economic Development Week. It's an opportunity, should you decide to celebrate your local economic developers, like economic development staff. That's going to be an opportunity for us to really educate folks on what we do, how we do, and why we do all the things we do when it comes to economic development in the city, but also to celebrate our wins, learn from our opportunities and missed opportunities, and really, again, celebrate ourselves and our colleagues for all the work we do across this country. Other than that, one quick thing I wanted to add from a budget standpoint, you're going to see a few things with regards to costs. You have some buildings that you all have. Certainly the former, or not former, but the Shiny Computers building, which is on the corner of Elm and High Street. We've got some repairs and things we need to make to that building. So you will see some of that reflected more than likely in your May financial update. But just want to make you aware, being landowners, you also have to make sure that there's maintenance involved and upkeep. So we will be having some spend, and you'll see some work being done to the buildings out there with regards to the roof and things of that nature. This rain has really exposed some things with regards to what's going on with the building. So I wanted to give you an update on that. Other than that, there are no other items on the agenda, Chair, but I stand for any questions if y'all have any.
Yeah, I just had one thing I didn't want to forget that, part of our commitment was to meet with the city council folks, and we had a chance to meet with Vice Mayor Barnes and Councilman Battle to kind of dive deeper into what the EDA does. I thought it was a good session, a lot of challenging questions, and I think everybody got a lot out of that meeting. So, we look forward to meeting with the additional council folks.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mitchell. I'll say you stole that thunder from me, but that's okay. You were there too, so that's what I was going to close with. But that's all good. And I just want to ditto and express the same sentiments. I think it went well, with our two liaisons, and I believe, and they shared that, they got a lot out of it. We got a chance to talk and go through and review a lot that's been going on, and some things we're looking forward to, and also to hear, their mindsets as to what, they envision and what they like to see. And I'll give them, the opportunity to comment on that meeting too, if they like.
I think the meeting went well. I did learn a lot. And some of the things that I learned, I took into a council meeting and mentioned it to increase, for one, to get you guys some actual money from the city, because I heard that you guys don't get any money from the city. And for me, it's important for you guys when it comes to economic development that you're able to travel and go to different places and talk to different businesses and get them to come here. We know nobody's knocking down our doors, but we need to go knock down other people's doors. So it was a very productive meeting. A lot came out of it, and I'm happy that we did have it.
It's my philosophy that the least I say, the more our work gets done.
Is that all? Is that all? Okay.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I can, agree. I'm a man of few words myself, so that's why I don't say too much either. So you can believe that one too. But again, I just want to say thank you, everybody, for the day. Today was a lot accomplished, a lot of discussion, a lot of things for us to think about and to look forward to as we face the challenges of our great city and this great state. We sincerely, love our city, and I know I can speak personally, and I know some of you has expressed also, there's so much great potential here, even though, we get some negative press, but as a whole, I believe there's so much potential here if we can all just keep it together and work together. All races, all folks, all political persuasions. We all just need to work hand in hand and realize that we're in this together. So, and I think if we keep that in mind, I think we can achieve the greatness that we all know we can get to. So, with that being said, and again, I hate using that phrase, but if all minds are clear, we will offer one last chance if anyone else has anything else again, and then if not, then we'll move on to adjournment. Okay, so hearing none, thank you again for our staff. Thank you for the city staff, those present today, and our citizens that listen in. Again, we look forward to our next opportunity to get together. Thank you, and you all have a great day.
Thank you. You too.